Hello, everyone, and welcome to Drinks with Friends. My name is Amy Glass, and I am the founder and creator of A Glass of Natural Health and Wellness, the community helping women break free and transform to live a happier, healthier, more abundant life. Today, I have a very incredible woman with me, the very special guest, Tracey Cook. Tracey Cook has an absolute, she could be the absolute testimony. Oh, that's not a word, testimony of resilience. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's been a long working day of resilience, overcoming a life of abuse, domestic violence, cancer, addiction, homelessness. She has literally transformed her hardships to a story of triumph, which I think is just absolutely incredible. I met Tracey probably a year and a half ago, and we connected, and I've just been watching her literally blow up like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And she was successful before, but now she just keeps reaching new and new heights. Tracey is a global podcast launch strategist, host, best-selling author, and speaker, inspiring growing communities to move from victim to victory. And she became a visionary leader from that. She had an incredible podcast called A Victim to Victory. And now she has relaunched a podcast early this year called the Podcast Empire, which I was very honored to be a guest in part of the Women's Summit series. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that Tracey has decided to join us today and to share her journey from darkness to empowerment. And it's just she serves a beacon of hope for anyone seeking to overcome adversity and unlock their full potential. So, Tracey, welcome to Refill Your Glass.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Amy. And I love what you're doing with the podcast. I can't wait to watch all of your episodes when they launch all the time. And yes, our stories are what make us, right?
Yes.
So I love when people introduce me like yourself just then, Amy, because it does allow me to reset and revisit all of those dark places that I used to be, because I'm every reason not to be a success. I've hit literally every single branch on that tree, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want people to fall into story comparison, but I do want everyone to get a message today, if anything, from your wonderful podcast here, of sharing those messages of hope and sharing practical and relatable tips as well on how to actually overcome, because all our journeys are unique. And if you're a woman in business as well, then your story is your brand and your brand is your story.
Yes.
And the person you were, we were just talking pre-show, and the person you were before all of this happened to you, that experience, that lived event, that person, that circumstance, that event, this is really hard to grasp, but it was actually given to you as a gift, and to do something more with it. Because as Les Brown says, we all have the greatness within us. And it is hard. There's trauma, there's healing, and the person you were to survive is not the person you need to be to thrive. Now, when I heard those words about 6 to 8 months ago, that just went off like a light bulb.
Yeah.
Because I do come from, childhood sexual abuse, domestic violence. My father was an alcoholic. We didn't have the best upbringing or circumstances. There was no talk about personal development or feelings or anything like that. It may be generational. And I'm well closer to 60 than I am 50 these days. And it is generational as well. And as generations come, we can break those generational traumas and chains. And it's literally scientifically proved in our DNA. Now,
Yeah.
in your podcast, Amy, you talk about wellness and health and mental health and
Mm.
things like that. And I think this is really relevant and something that we need to talk more about, because you can literally be that one person in your family to break those generational cycles, to break those generational chains, to not, your legacy, isn't material things. Your legacy is your story, to actually change the rest of the book chapters for generations to come, to break those generational traumas. Now, everyone has some form of trauma in their life, even if they believe they don't, they do. And it could even be just little Johnny sitting in the class, puts up his hand to answer a question, and the teacher shuts him down, and the kids laugh, and he plays small and never raises his voice again, flies
Yeah.
under the radar because he just doesn't want that feeling. That could be the most massive amount of trauma to little Johnny.
Mm.
Whereas little Susie may do that, laugh, and she goes, "Oh, stuff you. I'll just keep putting my hand up."
Yeah.
So it's so unique to all of us. And as we evolve and as we grow and as we get older and we revisit and we rethink and we have a look at all the same patterns that we're creating in our life with our life choices and our life circumstances. How did I end up with that partner? How come my kids don't respect me? How come my jobs never last? How come I keep making the same mistakes and I self sabotage and I hit that glass ceiling all the time? And
Mm.
then you realize one day that it's actually you, because
Yeah.
no one's coming to save you. And that burns. That really burns. No
Oh
one's
yeah.
coming to save you. And we have to embrace where we came from and stop blaming others. Yes, there may be an abuser, there may be your parents, there may be a circumstance or an event like the Bali bombings or something. But at some point, and this is so hard to grasp, and this is after many, many, many years of personal growth, we have to embrace that. We
Yeah.
have to take a deep breath and really sit in our heart space and get out of our head and
Yeah.
say, I am 100% responsible for my own life.
Oh yeah.
Whatever happened, happened. It happened. And I'm not saying dismiss it or disregard it,
Mm.
but try to heal from it. Reach
Yes.
out to a friend, reach out to a counseling service, reach out to a community support person, reach out to a therapist, reach out to a natural therapist, whatever you're intuitively guided to help you to heal. And the
Yeah.
healing will never stop. It
No.
is lifelong. The healing
Yeah.
will never, ever stop. But you have more awareness of what your triggers are. You have more awareness of what situations and people to be around, because we all know we're the average of the 5 people we hang around, right? And
Yeah.
we get to keep what we speak as well. So if we're saying, "Oh God, I'm dumb," or "God, I'm stupid," or "God, I'm always late," well, that is energetically what we're putting out into the universe. So the
Mm.
law of attraction is going to give us more of that. So
Yeah.
we get to keep what we speak. So stop
Mm.
saying, "Oh, I'm silly. Oh, I'd never understand that. Oh, I'd never be able to do that." Stop negating yourself.
Mm.
Have awareness of what you're saying. If your 5 or 6-year-old child was to say that, you would pick them up on it. So
Oh
pick
yeah.
yourself up on it. We have to start reaching out, getting that support, getting to really know what our language is and what language we're speaking,
Yeah.
and really audit your circle. And that includes family. That
Hmm.
100% includes family.
Yeah.
And limit yourself, limit the interactions, and surround yourself. There's so many community groups and online groups and activity groups in your local area. Just get resourceful. Go to your local council and ask. I'm a senior and I like walking. What have you got in my area where I can go and make some new friends?
Yeah.
And then nothing is without action behind it. So it's not
Mhm.
just sitting there burning candles, listening to Yanni. We've actually got to put some,
Effort
the
into it.
manifesting and the affirmations are great, right? The looking in the mirror and talking into our souls, and that's definitely part of it. But we got to take a bit of action as well.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right
And
about the belittling. I think, especially women, we tend to belittle ourselves so much. And for someone like I like to call myself a recovering self-hater because I have hated myself for as long as I can remember. And it got to such a point where I couldn't even look myself in the mirror because I hated every aspect of it. It caused eating disorders, it caused mental breakdowns, it caused all these things. But I'm also a victim. Well, I don't like using the word victim because there's always responsibility on both sides. And before people start jumping and saying, no, 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 please listen, because Tracey and I do understand this. To a point, you allowed that to happen. To a point. I am not condoning someone's behavior. I work in law enforcement, and worked in child protection for a long, long period of time. So I understand that there are some evil effing people out in the world and that don't deserve to breathe. But I'm talking from my experience. I came a couple of years ago, I broke free from a particular work environment that was extremely toxic. I was treated like nothing. I was worked to the bone, but I was belittled in every single way. I wasn't allowed to be promoted, even though I was the top person in the unit. I was treated. I have a medical condition, and they basically treated me like I was, I don't know, second, not even just not even like a real person, sort of thing. They treated me like a problem that they needed to get rid of instead of helping. And when I got out of that, I stepped back and I started thinking about all the things that I said to myself, or what I like to call the nasty bitch, was saying. And then I'm like, well, it's just a reflection of what I'm saying to myself. So I'm putting that energy out there. So what am I going to attract? I'm going to attract those people that are going to treat me like shit. And so that is what I'm talking about. The responsibility from that point of view. I am not condoning any abuse or anything like that, but there is a point where you're energetically allowing that to happen. And there are ways to do that. And that's through all the things that Tracey just mentioned, but also acknowledging that. And once you start becoming self-aware, your life literally transforms because you start pulling yourself up on those things. And it could be something as silly as every time you look in the mirror and you go, oh, I'm so fat. Oh, I'm always, so fat. So that constantly you're telling your subconscious, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat. So what are you going to keep doing? No matter when you try and start a new diet, that little subconscious voice is going to go, what's the point? You're just fat. You're always going to be fat. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. I think we've gone off a bit of a tangent, but we're talking about that responsibility. That's what we're talking about, not and taking responsibility for your actions as well, and being part of that. But you're right, you've overcome so much stuff, and so many people would probably say you're very resilient, but it's not easy, is it? It's not easy to overcome those things.
Resilience, is a growth.
Yeah.
Resilience is a growth. And it's great to have resilience and it's great to have tenacity, and all is birthed from a different place depending on what our circumstances are.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell people to embrace their story as a gift. And that is so hard for people to grasp their head around, especially somebody who's been through maybe childhood sexual abuse or something. It's like, that's not a gift. You know what? If you don't forgive yourself, then you can't move forward. You can't
No.
say, that has happened to me. I acknowledge it. I accept it. I'm aware of it. I'm going from survivor to thriver, and I need to move forward, because you know what? If you don't move forward from your circumstance, they win. That
Oh yeah.
person, event, or circumstance, they win. They don't
Mm.
care. They don't
No.
care. They don't even think about you. So why should you? Why
Yeah.
should you spend your whole life giving into that to let them win when they don't even care? They don't
Yeah.
even remember. They don't even give you a second thought,
Mm.
if it's that kind of situation.
Yeah.
DV, anything.
Mm.
So you
100%.
have to live your best life. You
Yeah.
have to find that resilience level, whatever that looks like for you, to move forward in your life. Now, for some, that may mean that you get up and you get dressed in the morning and you can go to the shops without an anxiety attack. For others,
Massively.
it's I'm going to impact the world. I'm going to help 1 million women to heal. I need my voice to be heard everywhere.
Yeah.
And some people, it's just I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to my mailbox, and maybe I'll go out on the weekend to my garden,
Yeah.
whatever it looks like for you, to be the best version of yourself, so that the other person or circumstance or event doesn't win and doesn't. You see, I treat it like a book, Amy.
Yeah.
So there's all the chapters in the book, and we hear this analogy quite often. We
Mm.
don't want to compare our chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 10, and we get to live our life by our design. We get
Yes.
to choose who we surround ourselves with. We do. We get to choose. We
Mm-hmm.
get to choose what circumstances we want to put ourselves into.
Yeah.
It's a choice. And we also get to choose, with a bit of awareness and a bit of help and support and guidance and healing and personal growth. And it's a journey that never ever stops. But we get to choose how we show up every single day.
Yeah.
If nobody has done the David Goggins 75 hard, boy, like that is life changing, right? And you can have the worst of worst circumstances. You can hear all these amazing people that have had massive success, the Oprahs and the Tony Robbins and the Russell Bransons and people are like that. We know their stories, and
Yeah.
at some point, if you're a business person, your business is just a commodity if you don't tell people your story,
Yeah.
because it's that Me Too movement. And when we embrace that story, and our brand is our story and our story is our brand, we can move forward, because there's that one person sitting there listening to a podcast just like
Yeah.
this one, just like Amy's, and they're going, "Oh my God, me too. That's
Yeah.
the one sentence I needed to hear. They
Mm.
get me. That's relatable. That
Yeah.
story is mine. They're speaking to me." And if we don't share those snips of our stories or our entire story,
Yeah.
then how do we actually evolve to show love and hope and empathy in the world, to change the world?
Yeah.
Because I'm going back to generational, Amy, of it stays in our four walls. We
Yeah.
don't tell anybody. And I read something through my healing journey that really resonated. And it's basically, a dysfunctional family will praise lies,
Yeah.
stays in the family. We don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And they'll actually criticize truth.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't talk to my parents at all. But that's
Yeah.
another story.
Yeah.
Because, if you've got the dysfunction of, the family and the parents saying, "Don't you tell anybody, it stays in these four walls. Our family sorts out its own business. You
Yeah.
just look out for number one. You're all that matters. Life's a B and then you die. It's
Yeah.
toughen up, pull on your big girl pants." If we're hearing this growing
Constantly.
up, that programming and that conditioning and that's wiring in our brain, and we take that into our teens and we take that into our relationships and our jobs and our financial and then our wealth and our abundance. And then all of a sudden we pull on the brakes of life and we go, how did I get here? And we
Yeah.
wait till that prognosis or that diagnosis or that never ending event again that's happened to you again. And you go, come on, like, when's all this going to change? And it changes when you actually have awareness
Yeah.
and you say, this has triggered me. These people trigger me. I need to make changes. And then it's having those brave conversations, I call them, with ourselves. Having that brave conversation with ourselves, because that's where the resilience and the tenacity, and we drop our armor, and our vulnerability is strength, and we step out of where we don't want to be, and we finally have a revelation of where we need to be to heal, where we can just be ourselves, be at peace with ourselves, go into our heart space and not think so much with our head in that
Yeah.
panic mode. Oh, if I say this, or if I cook eggs for dinner, will that set them off? And I didn't clean the floor and she's pulled up in the driveway. And oh my God, the kids aren't in the bath. And all these things that we say to ourselves, right? And as mothers and parents and just women, we spin these plates and we wear these numerous hats and we confuse ourselves with our roles.
Oh
We
yeah.
just
100%.
have to be comfortable in ourselves. We have to
And I think,
embrace our stories. You
yeah.
know, I've had cancer, homelessness, addiction. I had addiction after my cancer operation, not to drugs, but to pain medication,
Oh yeah.
because
Ooh.
I had a botched surgery, and when I say addiction to people, they're like, oh, drug addict. It's like, they were pain medication.
That
But
is,
it's,
I'd just like to make a comment that pain medication is the number one addiction in the world. And it's just that it's starting to get monitored now. But before it wasn't, because it's not something that is, they just pop. The crazy thing is, you go to emergency with, say, you've busted your shoulder, or your shoulder's disconnected, or anything, any sort of ache and pain, they instantly give you endone. And endone is the worst drug ever, and it's the number one most addictive drug in the world. So yeah, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent, but
No.
I'm very against
Yeah.
pain medication, because I lost my aunt to it. I think it will be 2 years this Christmas. She was addicted to it, and she overdosed accidentally, and she died. And it was my mum's sister, and she couldn't help her, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking that we couldn't help. And no matter how much we tried, and she did not want to get help. But I see it in my job, how addiction does it. I've seen it with my medical condition, because my muscular dystrophy means that I'm in pain all the time. I've been in pain. A couple of years ago, a specialist put me in a pain clinic, and these people were telling me how much drugs they were on, and they came to me, and I'm like, I'm on nothing, and they just could not believe it. But yeah, totally different subject. But we could talk about that.
Oh, that's a show in its own, I
That's a
think.
show in itself.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
you're right. People don't understand that addiction means anything that you're addicted to. You can be addicted to chocolate milk. You could be addicted to. There's from my background, there's a difference between people that are addicted to pornography, and they just happen to get to the next level and the next adrenaline hit, which would be child pornography. So that's why they're not a child sex offender. They're addicted to pornography, so they need that extra hit. So no matter, you can be addicted to oranges, and then I don't know, you can be addicted to anything. And if you have, just people need to realize that addiction is not just drugs. It can be addiction to anything. And you could be addicted to being a self abuser. And I'd say I probably was until I decided to break free. And it's easy to slip back into habits because it's easier. Your brain knows that so well, and all those sorts of things. But sorry, I interrupted you on
No,
that.
no. You know what? It's great to hear those kind of things, because addiction, as most people would know, is a fallout from trauma as well.
Yeah.
You're going to get
Oh, yeah.
addicted to something at some point, right?
Mm.
And it may be chocolate milk, or it may be pain med. You know, you're
Yeah.
going to get addicted to something at some point when you're in that survivor mode, and you're going
Yes.
through healing from trauma in that survivor mode. And it's not until you have that awareness and you audit your circle and you go and do some personal development, and things don't change if things don't change.
Yeah.
Like, we have to make changes if we actually want to break, and those generational traumas and curses, to be able to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
And I am very proud. I mean, I've got 9 grandchildren, and I can honestly say that, they're not going to be brought up in the same circumstances, and it's a different time, but I'm really aware to put down my phone and speak to them. I'm really aware of what language I use around them, because if they hear adults talking and putting each other down and whinging and complaining and saying, oh, there's not enough money for that, and they're going to grow up with a poor money mindset. They're going to grow up not attracting abundance. They're going to grow up thinking that they get to keep what they speak. And even my 5-year-old granddaughter, she says all the time, we were in the car once and we're driving along and someone pulled out in front of me, and I beat my hand and beat my horn and I said a swear word, and she said, "You get to keep what you speak, Nana." So they absorb
Oh, they're
absolutely anything.
sponges.
Don't we realize that as ourselves, as adults, of the old programming and the old language that we were brought up on? And you know what? It's never our parents' fault,
No,
really, depending on the
no.
circumstance, because they're just doing the best that they can with the tools and resources that they have and the coping mechanisms that they have. And as generations blossom, you can literally be the one that says, and I want to share really quickly, because I want to be mindful of our time on your
Yeah.
podcast, Amy, but there's this story of, there's a daughter and she's putting the roast into the oven, and she cuts off the end of the roast and puts it in the oven. And there's other family members there, and they go, "Why do you always cut off the roast before you put it in the oven?" She goes, "Oh, my mum used to do that." And they turn to the mum at the family gathering and they say, "Why do you always cut off the end of the roast before you put it into the oven?" She goes, "Oh, my mum used to do that." So they all turn to grandma and she says, "Well, back in my day, our ovens were only really small, and if we wanted to cook a roast, we had to cut off the end to put it into the oven so it'd cook properly." But see how that story, just generations, they don't question or critically think, why are we doing it like that? Why are
Yeah.
we talking like that? Why are we living like this? And it's not until you really evolve and do that personal development and embrace your story to be able to step into that other version of yourself, because it is with us regardless of our circumstance. There's no knight in shining armor to come and save us. The greatness is literally within us. Abundance is our birthright.
Yeah.
And the more energetic you are, because everything is energy, the more you give out, the more you're going to get back.
Oh,
And
100%.
when you put yourself in those positions, when you actually take a stand and you find your voice, that is such an empowering place to be. And like I said, it could just be getting dressed, going to your mailbox, or it could be standing on a stage in front of hundreds of thousands of people and sharing your messages of impact with the world. We need to change the world. We need to show hope and empathy, and we
Yeah.
need to raise the next generations with empowerment and with being able to use their voice. And if you're in business, that will actually help you brand so you're more relatable, you connect more authentically. And what a way to live, just being authentic, showing up, speaking your truth, and it helps someone else. Somebody else listening to your podcast today, Amy, is going to hear something you or I have said and go, yes, that's just given me the inspiration to go and pick up that crisis line. That's just given me the inspiration to, when I pick up the kids from school today, to sit down without my phone in front of them and just talk to them. Or somebody laying in bed listening to your beautiful podcast is going, you know what, I'm going to get up and have a shower.
Yeah. Or I'm going to start talking to myself nicely. I'm going to start doing, like, I've just developed a program that I've literally launched today. I kind of sort of I'm not keeping it quiet, but I've launched when we're recording this, which is the 31st of July. And it's about transforming your mindset from that negative, stuck, burnt out mindset to a positive mindset. And the first one is addressing limiting beliefs, but actually taking a deep dive and going, well, why do you think you're, for example, why do you think you're stupid? Is that because your parents always said, oh, don't do that, that's silly. Don't do that, that's silly. Those sorts of words program your brain, because your subconscious doesn't really know the difference between what's real and what isn't. And it will twist it in a way that benefits them because they are doing it to protect you. And this is something that I'm having to learn to accept, that the subconscious is trying to protect you. Having a psychology background and degree and stuff like that, trying to understand that the subconscious, when you're talking about trauma, when you're talking about someone who has, say, for example, had been abused or bullied's a great one. Most people have been bullied. Unfortunately, kids are cruel sometimes, but that's learnt behavior as well. Bullying. So someone who's been severely bullied, I was severely bullied, and realizing that subconscious. So I kept myself quiet, so I don't have a lot of friends as an adult. And now, because I'm doing a lot of healing, I'm on a massive healing journey at the moment. And I sit back and I go, that's because I kept everyone away. I was too afraid to let people in because I'm like, well, they're just going to bully me. And my subconscious would constantly say that and constantly question why that person was being nice to me. Why would they want to be your friend? And it's just, it is an absolutely incredible and mind-opening. I can hear my girls playing in the background. They've got a squeaky toy. It's mind-opening, and once you realize, holy shit, that's the reason why I act like that. And that's the oven example is a fantastic example, because most daughters will they grow up copying their mothers, and you can have daughters that are complete opposite to their mothers. Sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. But you are a reflection of your environment, and the whole nurture versus nature sort of thing topic comes into play. And you go to any person that studies psychology, you could argue with that to the cows come home. But you are a product of your environment, and your parents, like you said, did the best that they could with the tools they had. So I had wonderful supportive parents, and I was born with a condition, and I was the firstborn child, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. But that was the thing that I kept getting told until I did find out at age 14, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. So that I now, as an adult, constantly through my life, there's always something wrong with me. So what did my subconscious do in order to protect me? Negative self-talk. So it made me stay in a box and hate myself and not do anything. And it's just, once you become aware, like it's like little puzzle pieces coming together. And once it clicks, it's like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that makes sense. There's no one to blame. There's no one, I'm never going to blame my parents. They are amazing, but they are products of their environment. And I know from now, I've had to live with, not had to, my parents have been living with my husband and I for 6 months because their house was delayed because of the building crisis in Australia. Everyone knows about the building crisis in Australia. It's insane. But so I've come, and it's been a blessing because I've understood their behaviors now. And then I understand, okay, so that's the product of their environment. And it just keeps going back and back. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was about shadow work and stored trauma, and how trauma is handed down generational. And I'm just like, wow. And then currently doing studies of this in neuroscience. So it's not something that just what some people go the woo-woo are talking about. It's neuroscience. They're understanding that trauma is passed down, especially if you're a firstborn child. And it's just like, wow. So that trauma stays in your body and it manifests out, which we both understand very well. So yeah, I just wanted to.
Genetic DNA. DNA. It's in our DNA, literally. It's in our DNA. It's in our cells.
Yeah.
And we've got to remove those blocks and do that inner work to be able to change generations, to step into our success and claim our birthright of love and abundance.
Yes, 100%.
And that's what we have to do. We have to be resilient. We have to dig deep and do that work. And that looks different for everybody. So reaching out to the crisis center, having an exit plan, auditing your circle. If you don't like your job, then find something else that's going to light your fire. If you don't like what your friends talk about and do, you do have a choice, because if things don't change, things don't change. So how are you going to exit out of that, and where are you going to go next? And then audit that circle, have complete awareness around that circle, because once you actually change those key elements that we've been mentioning, then there is so much glory and so much love and so much abundance and so much joy and so much comfort in the healing. We embrace the healing then instead of resisting it.
Yeah.
We let down, the guards and let down our armor, and we're fully vulnerable and we feel so courageous at the same time. And that's definitely my words of advice for anybody listening to your amazing podcast here, Amy. And I hope that really does resonate with somebody and make sense to somebody today.
I think it will. I think there's so many people out there that are looking for someone like ourselves that are brave enough to come online. And trust me, I 2 years ago would never have dreamed of being on camera, but I just did it, and I just kept doing it. And sometimes, like most of the time, I don't even care if no one watches, because at least I've said what I wanted to say. And I think mental health is it's been such a taboo topic, generational thing, like you were talking about. But now it's becoming more open, and I just want people to be comfortable to speak about it. Like I was ashamed of my mental health, and now I'm like, no, you know what? That's made me who I am. And I've been through so much shit, and I've come out the other side. And if that can help someone who can't get out of bed, who thinks that they're contemplating suicide or ending their life, and they listen to this and go, actually, there's a bit of hope. There's a bit of hope. There's a spark. And that spark the fire starts going again. You reach out to people like us, or you reach out to the crisis line, or you reach out to someone that can help, and you start talking and you start that healing journey. Is it easy? No. Is it going to be painful? Yes. Is it going to be really difficult, and some days you don't want to get out of bed and you want to run away? Yes. Yeah. Do you have days where you just want to just cry all day? Yeah, you do. But on the other side is amazing. And one of my, I don't even know who told me this. They basically said that you've got to, in order to get the rainbow, you have to go through the storm. So you've got to clear the path to have the rainbow. And if you want to have a better life, if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and just gone, how the heck have I got here? I'm miserable. I hate my life, blah, blah, blah. Take a bit of stock, start going, you know what, I need to break free. That's why I call my community Breaking Free and Transforming, because you do literally have to break free. You feel like you've been in a prison, and sometimes that's a self-made prison. It's your subconscious made prison. And once you start coming out of it, a world of opportunities and abundance and positive things, all these things come in. You're still going to have shit still happens. You can't stop things happening because you have no control over the outside world, but you do have control of your how you respond and how you go, and you have your own house and all those sorts of things, and your friends and your family and stuff like that. And unfortunately, sometimes you need to make those hard decisions of cutting those toxic people out of your life. Doesn't mean you cut them out. Sometimes it means you cut them out forever and you never see them again, or it means that you just don't spend as much time with them anymore until they realize that the reasons why. But yeah, I totally agree with you. And
absolutely, you know,
incredible.
and we never know what someone's story is either. So
No.
it's just being kind, right?
Yes,
We don't know
always
that
kind.
person we're sitting next to on the bus. We don't know their story yet.
No.
Assumptions is a word that is the thorn in my side. We all make these assumptions. We hear people say, "Oh, I bet she," or "I heard." You know, stop with the assumptions. We never know
Makes
what
an ass out of
somebody's
you an
story is.
umption.
Yeah, it's very hurtful to people to assume things of them based
Yeah.
on your own beliefs, because you don't know how many chapters they've walked through in their book just to be able to show up, you know,
Yeah.
to work, just to be able to show up at mum's club, just to be able to drop their kids off at school, etc. And then you're going to assume and then create gossip around that. So again, you get to keep what you speak. Life's
Yes.
are lessons. Be kind, show hope, empathy, and love, and that will actually create a ripple effect to change the world 100%.
Oh, I can't go on any further from there. That's just the perfect ending, Tracey. That is the perfect ending. But yes, no, 100%. And for someone who works in my job and our life is to sort of assume what someone's going to do, it's really hard to switch that brain off when I leave work. But I do, and it's a conscious thing. It's a conscious thing, and my family can be very stereotypical, and I pull them up on it now. I never used to. I used to agree, and now I'll go, you don't know. You don't know.
Yep.
You just assume.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that saying that if you assume, you make an ass out of you, an umption. And it's
exactly. Yeah. You know, and just, you know, just if you don't mind, just adding to that as well. It's you know, if you're actually letting people talk like that around you as well, you're part of the problem, not the solution as well.
Yeah.
Just again, that awareness, again, that finding our voice, right? We don't have to say something. Maybe we can get up and just leave the room, and people will hopefully catch on.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're talking about you when you're out of the room, then maybe change your circle.
Yeah. What's the Taylor Swift song? It's hi, it's me.
Yeah.
It's me. I'm the problem, it's me. So
yeah, that's it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Tracey, thank you
absolutely.
so much for joining me today. This has been an incredible podcast, and I no doubt that I'll definitely be asking you to come back on again, because we have got so much to speak about and to share to this and share to the world, because like you said, one person's story, it can be the key to unlocking someone else's whole new life. And that, I think, is incredible. The power of words, the power of social media in that way. And I know the bad side of social media. That is what I do all day. And then I switch it, and then I come and bring the light. So, and you're doing exactly the same thing with your incredible podcast, and having the amazing guests that you have on your podcast, and helping others to find their voice and speak their truth and show the world that, and allow others to heal as well. So I think that's just incredible. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, Amy. And I'm really looking forward to listening to a few more of your episodes as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks again. And remember, thank you for listening. And remember to refill your glass and get your thirst back for life. See you next time. Bye.